Absolutely. I think that, for one, we don't have a national plan. And I think that's what Biden has been using a lot to talk about, that he will institute a national plan come winning the presidency.
Yeah, so Biden has said that he would 100% make mask wearing a federal mandate, which is huge. You know, over the summer, I was traveling through the country on a road trip, and I would get to certain states, drove through Iowa, go into a gas station, not wearing a mask, get home to Illinois, everyone there is masked up. So that difference, I think, could definitely, it gets confusing when you have to wear a mask in one place and you don't in another. That's huge. He also has said that he will rejoin the World Health Organization, which President Trump
withdrew from in
July. Correct.
I think notably also we have to remember that the Trump administration actually dismantled the National Security Council that was responsible for preparing and coordinating pandemic situations.
Definitely.
That was instituted when Obama was president.
Which is definitely important to consider tonight. Also, I think the contact tracing is a piece that Biden has said he really plans to double down on if elected. And the test administered, making sure that all Americans have access to free testing as well.
And you mentioned it earlier, Trump has gone out and rejected CDC guidelines when it comes to mask wearing at his rallies and assuming at some of the watch parties tonight.
And I think that definitely at the watch party tonight, definitely in the 11th hour push over the weekend at the rallies when we see people, squished together like sardines like they're at Coachella Music Festival. Definitely confusing when we hear Dr. Deborah Birx say today that we are in a terrible state. And the CDC says the same. Dr. Anthony Fauci says the same, that the coronavirus, the worst days are not behind us. And I think it can definitely be, it can be just confusing for Americans to know who to believe when it comes to coronavirus. It's definitely a hot button issue on the ballot.
Absolutely. With that, we're going to toss it to an explainer on some Biden and Trump policies.
Hi, my name is Allison Wood, and I voted for Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election.
Joe Biden. Biden.
I'm voting for Donald Trump because I believe he supports America as a land of opportunity.
I will be voting for Joe Biden because I really care about the ocean.
Biden. I decided to vote for Trump because I believe when the government has become involved in giving people money and stipends, it did not turn out well for the economy in the long run.
Reporter Jillian Carroll, who's been following the Biden campaign, is with us. Jillian? Oh,
sorry, she's not with us live, but she does have more information about the Biden campaign.
I'm Jillian Carroll for Annenberg Media, reporting from Los Angeles. I was specifically focusing on Biden supporters and what specific points on his platform pushed them to vote. One of those points is healthcare, both as it relates to the handling of the coronavirus and affordable insurance and policies like the Affordable Care Act. The other is race relations and police brutality, as that has been a topic of conversation for a long time, but especially in the year of 2020. The Associated Press has called a few states, and not many surprises yet, but stay tuned with Annenberg Media for more updates throughout the night.
Thanks, Jillian. Definitely great to hear her insight. And now let's transition a little bit, talking about Ohio and Wyoming.
We have a few states to talk about. So Ohio and Wyoming. So Ohio, these are the results. We have Biden coming in.
They were called by the Associated Press.
By Associated Press, 45.1% to Trump, 53.5%. So this is our first called by Associated Press battleground state.
Yeah, officially called. We had that conversation a little bit earlier in the night when NBC News projected it, but now this is the real deal. These are the hard and cold facts. Trump has Ohio. So what does this mean, right? How can we think about this in the context of the map? Well, there are still states that haven't made call. Definitely a lead for the president. But still waiting on, Florida, even Georgia, North Carolina, as well as Pennsylvania.
Right. This was a state, like we said earlier, it would have been surprising had it gone to Biden, but it was a toss-up. It wasn't necessarily a shoo-in for Trump. So he pulled the 18 electoral college votes over to his side. But it definitely was not an obvious call, but those are the numbers.
Yeah, I'm completely with you, Zoe. And then for Wyoming, obviously, no surprise at all there. But kind of looking at some of the other battleground states. So Florida, we can expect most likely some results there pretty soon because it's at 96%.
I think a lot of people are waiting, to see what happens with Florida. Once again, similar to Ohio in that people kind of expected it to go to Trump. And if it had gone to Biden, it would have been a surprise. Yeah,
definitely would be a surprise if it went to Biden. Yeah. But let's go back to talking about some Biden policies and where he differs from the president.
Yeah.
Should we talk about climate change?
Yeah.
Let's talk about climate change. Biden has said that if elected, he will allocate $2 trillion to clean energy projects and essentially wants to start ending carbon emissions by 2035, which is it's a huge central part of his campaign. He also wants to develop new nuclear technologies to fight climate change and plans to end oil and gas leases as well as offshore drilling. A lot of voters tonight that are passionate about climate change, which is definitely a hot button issue. The president, as you're going to talk about, questions the science of it to begin with. Yeah. But voters that are all in for climate change are
yeah, and I think it's definitely an issue top of mind for young voters. We'll be the ones who are living this climate change. But to Trump's policy, Trump has repeatedly questioned the science of climate change, expressing doubts about whether human activity is responsible. He's advocated for expanded domestic fossil fuel production and has sought to roll back the environmental regulations implemented by President Obama. And in Trump's first term, he withdrew the U.S. from the 2015 Paris Agreement on climate, in which nearly 200 countries agreed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which I believe Biden would be trying to re-enter.
Yes, he would be trying to re-enter. You're absolutely correct. I think more generally when we talk about climate change, but even just the two campaigns side by side, with voters, it's really, it's gotten so far away from Trump and Biden. And this pandemic has really made some of these issues so personal. We have lost 231,000 more than 231,000 Americans.
Yeah, number goes up.
And those are lives. Those are moms, those are dads, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles. Yeah. And to just take a second to process that, like you've said earlier, there is so much on the ballot in a way that there just never has been before.
Yeah, people want to plan going into Trump's policy and what he's done. Notably, the Trump administration dismantled the National Security Council, like I said earlier. That was an office responsible for preparing and coordinating the response to pandemics. Trump issued a number of restrictions on travel to the United States, beginning with the January 2020 ban on foreign travelers who had recently been in China. Trump has rejected CDC guidelines, guidance when it comes to mask wearing. At his rallies, many people are unmasked and virtually no one is socially distanced. The Trump administration has blamed China for misleading the world, and in July, Trump said he would withdraw the United States from the WHO.
Yes, he did say that. Like I said earlier, Biden said that's one of the first things he would do is rejoin that effort if elected. But now we're going to bring in Luke to transition and segue a little bit to talk more about some Senate races.
Luke, we always have questions for you.
Yes, we do.
Do you have any updates for us while we've been having conversation about policy?
Yeah, well, thank you again for bringing me in. I think one of the most interesting updates from the night is that both parties actually flipped seats. In Alabama, Tommy Tuberville who's a Republican, beat incumbent Doug Jones, and in Colorado, John Hickenlooper, who is a Democrat, also beat Cory Gardner, who is the Republican incumbent. So not really gaining ground on either one, flipping a seat each way, but definitely two races that are very interesting to look at. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
I want to talk a little bit about the Alabama Senate race because obviously it's a seat flipped, but if we remember that Doug Jones won that seat in 2018 against Roy Moore, who had allegations against him, so it's not necessarily that Doug Jones won because of his stances in that last election. It's interesting to think that that was kind of circumstantial.
Yeah, I mean, it is very interesting. Tommy Tuberville is new to politics, and he is actually he was a former football coach in the SEC, which is very popular there, and so a newcomer, but he also comes with some maybe baggage or scandals. He's had some things going on with his financial affairs that a lot of voters took into account, but apparently it didn't make as big of an election as Doug Jones might have hoped in this, and so, or as big of an impact as Doug Jones might have hoped. So, yeah, it is an interesting race. He's a big supporter of Trump, Tommy Tuberville is, and we will see what he does in the Senate, but yeah.
And Luke, I want to thank you for joining in. And just to round up the conversation, I think we need to just go over a little bit about what is at stake in these Senate races. So now that the Democrats have lost one seat, to flip the Senate, Democrats need to net 3 seats if Joe Biden wins the election, and 4 seats if Biden loses. I think it's important to remember in these Senate races to flip the Senate, the Democrats need to net 3 seats if Biden wins. If Biden loses, 4 seats, because Harris, as a VP, if Biden wins, would get that tie vote when it would be 50-50.
Very important, Zoe, that you made that distinction. I'm really glad you did, because at first when we were talking about it, I was a little bit confused. I was like, oh, the Democrats need 5 seats. You were like, actually, no, if
not necessarily,
happens,
yeah.
Depends. So yes,
definitely
you're right.
Depends.
That's what would happen.
We're gonna pull up the map again.
Yes, we are.
Not sure that anything has really changed since we've last looked.
According to the Associated Press, Trump has Montana and Iowa. Did I get that right? I think I did. Did I not?
If that's
yes, Trump has
true,
Iowa, 52% to 45%. Biden, 6 electoral college votes. You know, we think about Iowa, and it has that rural red leading. That's support from working class whites, and Trump won Iowa in the landslide in 2016. He was by 9.4%. Right. So, again. Democrats probably sitting on the edge of their seat right now, with Texas, and not Texas, not as much, but with Arizona, Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all up in the air right now. Who knows? And I think it's just there's a lot of mail-in voting that
needs to be counted, and into tomorrow we will be seeing that.
Circling back to that uncomfortable reality that
uncertainty is the word for the night.
It is the word for the night, and you know what, Zoe? I think the only thing certain about 2020 is uncertainty.
Beautiful.
And so I think despite that uncertainty tonight, there is some things we can infer, right? Biden has 213, Trump has 145, 180 delegates, votes still up for grabs.
You're spitting facts at me, and I love to hear it. We're going to take it to the other coast and check in with Not Live. Nathan has some stuff about Seattle to tell us.
I'm Nathan Hun, reporting election night for Annenberg Media. I'm currently based here in Seattle, where the Associated Press has projected Joe Biden to win the state's 12 electoral votes. This is no surprise, as the state has not gone red since Ronald Reagan in 1984. A couple of other key races here. Jay Inslee is expected to win his 3rd term for governor, and Kim Wyman, a Republican, is running for her 3rd term as Secretary of State. Officials expect King County, the county that Seattle is in, to have an 80% voter turnout of registered voters.
And we're going to continue to go to Florida, right?
Yeah, so before we go to Florida, really quick, Florida is one of those states, the Sunshine State. We've talked about it a lot, but, it could be an indicator of some sort to what we could expect. I think right now, it's at 96% of the vote. One thing that's interesting about Florida is that because of their, they have a huge retired population, and they are very experienced in the natural disaster hurricane department. They know, they are on it for mail-in voting and counting those ballots. So that's why we will know Florida tonight, as opposed to take Pennsylvania, Michigan. Those are states where it's going to be a slower count. But we actually have one of our reporters, right?
Yeah, Alexis Gebhardt is in Orlando, Florida, with information about the Hispanic vote.
I'm Alexis Gebhardt, the Florida correspondent for Annenberg Media. For this election, the Florida Latinx vote is extremely important. There are 2.3 million Florida Latinx voters, and their voting patterns are very diverse depending on the subgroup. Puerto Ricans and Dominicans lean more Democratic, and Cubans and Venezuelans vote more conservative. Back to Ella and Zoe in the studio.
So we have breaking news. The Associated Press has called Florida for Trump.
Yes, they
so
have. It was 51.2% to 47.8%. Biden lagging behind.
We've been waiting for this state.
We have been waiting for this state for a while. Florida has 29 votes in the Electoral College. And I mean, I think Trump really, really needed Florida. Again, Democrats sitting on the edge of their seat right now, not heard from states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Like Alexis just said, I think the Hispanic vote really matters in Florida, and I would be interested to see what those numbers and that turnout was like, and how Trump mobilized those voters behind him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see, as these battleground states come back, how the mail-in voting hasn't really been a change. It didn't really, it didn't go blue in these states that had heavy mail-in voting. And of course, we're waiting on Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. But like I said earlier in one of the broadcasts, these 25 million new voters, we're not really seeing where that's showing up.
I mean, and I think it's everything you just said. I think you hit the nail on the head. And now we have a package video content from one of our